she should be virgin, but at the same time, she should be experienced, I don't know, excellent in bed. I don't know how these two things match, but in their mind, it's like this. And she should be, I don't know, from a very conservative family. I spent 8 hours in the hospital and they didn't even check me. I asked, like, please give me painkiller. Like, I will wait more, but just give me painkiller to reduce the pain. And everyone was super rude to me. Like, I don't know, I don't speak this way with my dog, with any dog, They spoke with me like I'm nothing.
Going down the hill was even worse because you're like, oh shit, I'm going to fall. I'm going to break my head.
They were waiting until I invite them somewhere as well. And I'm not going to invite, I'm not going to force relationship. I think it should be on a man's side.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Dating Beyond Borders podcast. Today, I'm excited to talk about two countries that are close to my heart. Russia, where I was born and raised, and Portugal, a place I called home for quite a short time, but that left a real lasting mark on me. Joining me today is Galina, a Russian content creator who's been living in Portugal for the past 7 years. But she didn't just move to Lisbon right away, as is the case with so many of us. She experienced life in real Portugal too, and we'll talk about that. We'll dive into the cultural differences between the two countries, what it's really like living in Portugal as a foreigner, and how Lisbon has changed in the recent years with the digital nomad and expat boom. Is it still a good city to move to in 2025? So without further ado, welcome, Galina.
Hello, Marina.
I'm so curious to ask you as many questions as I can because, like I said, Portugal is a place that is really, really close to my heart. And I also personally wonder if it's still the same as I remember it when I moved 4 years ago, if it's changed for the better, for the worse, what your honest experience has been like. But before we get to that, I kind of want to start back in growing up in Russia. First of all, what city are you from in Russia?
I'm from the south of Russia. It's Krasnodar. Probably no one knows about this city. Actually, Portuguese know about the city because of the football club that was thriving some years ago. Yeah, so I'm from there. It's also close to Sochi, if you know.
So weird hearing Russian spoken with an English accent. You're like, I'm from Krasnodar. I'm like, you're from Krasnodar.
Krasnodar.
Two Russians speaking English to each other is the nature of this podcast. But anyways, Krasnodar. So that's where that was a mix of English and Russian right there. But anyways, that's where you grew up. So walk me through some of the things about this life in Russia that you didn't quite resonate with that made you go, you know what? I think I'm going to try life abroad.
So first of all, I think that you cannot compare Moscow and the rest of the Russia because it's completely different realities. And Moscow is a sort of an international city, big city. You can find everything there whenever you want and stuff like this. Krasnodar is a very nice city. It's also quite big and it's bigger than Lisbon. Yeah, good services, good stuff. But, I felt since the first time I visited Europe, it was, I don't know, I was around 13. I was really excited about the international experience, about different cultures and stuff like this, that people from different communities live close to each other. They exchange the cultural experience and stuff like this. Also, I studied English and I wanted to practice, but in my city, was no one to practice with. Almost no one spoke English. There were almost no foreigners. So I felt a little bit bored and I always wanted to explore some other countries, to get some other experience, to master my English as well. So that was one of the reasons I decided to try to move and try to live somewhere. And also, I feel like Russia is too conservative for me. And now it's becoming even more conservative. But I feel that in Russia, you have a certain way to be raised. Like you're living in a bubble, you're living in a box where everything is already decided for you. So a girl, like you should go to school, that you should go to university. In the university, you have to find your husband and it's going to be a love of your life. You're going to live all the life with him, then you have to raise children and have work and stuff like this. And if you are not meeting these expectations, you're out of this bubble and people judge you. and people judge you for everything. And I felt like in Europe, girls have, and boys as well, they have more freedom to choose what they want to do. It's less pressure from the society. And yeah, and this, I don't know, I just felt that there is more freedom in Europe, and that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about the difference between Moscow and other cities. I grew up in Moscow, but I moved when I was young. And whenever I watch a lot of shows about Russia, and they always show these these cities, and you just think, oh my god, I'll kill myself, right? Like great buildings, like a playground that has one like rickety, like like little
I mean,
set of swings, like people with no teeth. I don't know how Krasnodar is. I don't want to
that's
judge,
also,
right?
yeah, you don't judge also because what you see on YouTube, it's actually extreme remote villages or really, I don't know, low quality cities, like some remote cities outside of. Actually, no, you can find it in the center of Russia, kind of close to Moscow as well. But Krasnodar is the center of the Russian south. So it's quite big city, it's developed cities. Of course, we have our problems as well, but honestly, it's a good city to live. And I had a pretty comfortable life there. I cannot complain about my life in Krasnodar. I just always wanted to do something else, and I always were facing for more. So I wanted initially to move to Moscow and St. Petersburg, but after visiting it on winter, me as a girl from the south, I wouldn't manage the weather.
Yeah.
It's too cold, it's too foggy, I would be constantly depressed.
Yeah, a great point as well that you said that there are certain expectations, right? And now, without getting into the political side of it, it's getting worse because of this pressure to have kids, many kids, and it's also, yeah, I definitely don't want to get too political, but it's getting, I think, harder as well. And I have a question for you as well. I mean, you did leave when you were younger, but in terms of kind of the dating scene, did you notice that it was hard because there were less men than women?
Uh, I don't think so. I don't know about, I cannot say about all Russia, but in my city, I didn't face this problem. Also, because many people from other cities, like it's the capital of the region. So many people just went there. But what I really faced is the quality of men. That I can tell because all my friends from school, like really smart and handsome guys, they also had ambitions and they didn't want to be stuck in my hometown, so they also wanted to move somewhere else, and many of them went to study in Moscow, St. Petersburg, or abroad, or somewhere else. So at one point, I realized that there's kind of no one to date. I mean, they're still very good people, but I think that I just couldn't find people that are close to me in terms of ambitions and interests. And again, all like it was a very common situation. I fell in love with a guy, we started to date, or we are like nearly dating, and he's going to study or to live somewhere else. And that happened many times. So I realized that there's nothing to catch in my hometown.
Yeah, no, I get it. I also feel like there's kind of, as you said, there is an expectation that you get married younger. And so women, they're like, okay, I'm in university. I need to find a husband. Okay, they grab onto the guy and they're like, okay, uh, otherwise they realize that it's going to be much more difficult. And I wonder if that's changed because this is my kind of stereotype, but I did leave a long time ago. I remember I met a girl in a hostel and she really wanted to stay in Italy because she said, if I go back, and she was 25, which was so ridiculous to me because she was so young in my eyes. She said, if I go back to St. Petersburg, it's just going to be really hard for me to find somebody, because so many people are already married. And I wonder, has that changed or are people still getting married early?
I think yeah, people still get married early. Definitely, like my friends, for example, my closest friends, they already married for many years. One girl, she started to date her future husband and like current husband when she was like 16, and they're still together. They have a baby now, and she's my age. Another girl, so she started to date at university. Now they got married. Some of my ex classmates, actually, almost everyone at my age already have baby or even two babies. So it's really common. And by the we even have this term like old старородящая, like old mother. When you're above 25, you're already an old mother. So that's ridiculous. And, every time I come back to Russia, that's actually a funny thing that it's a funny thing, but it bothers me all the time. Every time I go back to Russia, I want to visit all the doctors because it's cheaper and because my parents know this doctors is already, people that you can trust. And every time I go there, and last time I went to a dentist. So he's a dentist and he was asking me about life in Portugal and everything. And he was telling me that the best age for a girl to have kids is 18 or before 20, because after that, the nature is created us that way that it's going to be harder for us. It's going to be hard for our bodies. It's going to be more complicated in all terms, like you have less energy and everything, which is probably true. But he was telling me that in that way that he was pressuring me. I don't know, like I should have kids right now. Like my watches are tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
And everyone tells that in Russia. And my parents as well, like you're in a constant pressure. And I completely disagree with that because babies kind of have babies. And if I had a baby at the age of 18, that would be probably the biggest mistake because I wouldn't develop myself as a person.
I wholeheartedly agree with, and I like that saying that you said babies can have babies, because what do you know at 18? You don't even know who you are. And now you have to take care of a little human being, and you don't get to live, right? You don't get to enjoy life. You don't get to experience anything in your life. It's funny that you mentioned that you went to the doctor and the doctor said this, because I've heard of multiple stories just like this where people go in for all their checks because they're really great in Russia. You pay very little and you can get like a full body scan, which
Yeah.
by the way, you cannot do here in North America. It's super expensive. But anyways,
In Portugal as well.
Portugal as well. And a friend of mine, she went in and she had some issue with her, I don't know what it was, ovaries or something. And the doctor said, well, it's because you didn't give birth and you're an old staradadesh, as you said. It's like you should have already given birth. And she was like, yeah, maybe 30 already. So she was, by Russian standards, practically dead.
Yeah. And everyone, like my family or like their generation, even my generation, they think that I'm unhappy in Portugal just because I'm not married, I don't have kids. So in Russian eyes, I'm not successful, you know? And I think there is a lot of sexism. And what I see, I don't know, because I didn't come to Russia. Like if I come once a year, once every 2 years for like some weeks. So I cannot really know how life is in Russia. But what I see in social media that it's a real issue now between men and women because women require too much. Like, oh, he should earn a lot. Like he should have a car, a house, and everything. La 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 la. And she what guys require from girls, like she should look like a top model, she should be virgin, but at the same time she should be experienced, I don't know, excellent in bed. I don't know how these two things match, but in their mind it's like this. And she should be, I don't know, from a very conservative family because they are super jealous if she ever talked to a guy in her life and stuff like this. I don't know. I hope not many people follow this, but it's really so wide in social media now that I'm concerned more and more about Russia.
Everyone, just a quick note to say that while I love putting these podcasts together each week, they do take a ton of time and effort. So if you're enjoying the show, please be sure to follow on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you're tuning in, and give this podcast a 5-star rating to help it grow. This support really helps me keep improving the show's quality. Thank you, and back to the episode. Yeah, I agree with you. I watch a lot of talk shows, and there's a term for women now called тарелочница.
Тарелочница, yeah.
So for anyone that doesn't speak Russian, which is all of you, it's women who, it basically means like plates, plate women.
Plate diggers.
plate diggers. Exactly. It's basically using a man to eat. It's basically taking a man to a very expensive place so he can cover your food. And a lot of men have started a movement against it just because, and I get it, right? Because nobody wants to be used to that extreme. And a lot of these women, they kind of look the same way. They have these giant lips, fully done. Like you don't even know what she looked like a few years ago. So it's very funny. I also think like, okay, I do like certain values in Russian society when it comes to men being gentlemen. I love that men understand that a woman would call it the weaker sex in a way that they will hold her hand, they will carry something heavy, they will open the door and pay the bill. Those are nice values, but it is taken to an extreme these days. So I think, and I feel like the values are so weird in my opinion. There's a street in Moscow where it's like it's the richest street. You probably know Patriarch, I think it's called. And
Patriarch.
Patriarch. And it's like going around. Yeah, exactly. But how do you say it?
Patrike.
Patrick. And it's a street where you go and you dress up and you basically try to get a husband, I suppose, or men to pay for you. And so these values, it's interesting, because I've stayed in my life, I've stayed so much in hostels and I've traveled a lot, and you almost never see Russians in hostels. And it's because they like really nice, like VIP fancy things. That's why you see so many Russians in Dubai. They love that kind of lifestyle. And how do you feel about that personally?
About what exactly? Comfortable lifestyle?
No, comfortable lifestyle is great, but there's a focus on VIP treatment, and
Ah,
there's a focus on having a
well,
lot of money.
yeah, that's true. And that's what I was kind of experienced a lot in my life because I started like from 16 or some, yeah, 16, 15, I changed my school and it was kind of fancy neighborhood where we lived in. But I was a very simple girl from a very simple background. My family was not rich. Then it started to be better. So we decided to move to another neighborhood. But I was shocked when I came to school and people started to check what label, like what brands I'm wearing. They literally came to me doing like, oh, what is this? And there were some girls like, oh, if you don't wear these brands, you cannot be my friend and stuff like this. So people were really focused so much on this materialistic branding stuff that I didn't really feel that I belonged there. Then I started to belong. Like I just started, if you are growing in this society, you have to follow these rules, otherwise you are an outsider. After a while, I realized that it's not my thing, and that's also why I wanted to move somewhere because I just could not resonate with that. No, of course, I like to be like staying in a good hotels and stuff, but honestly, when I traveled in Europe, I stayed in many hostels and I had so much fun and I met so many amazing people that I would never experience in any top-notch hotels. That's true that Russian like it, but I also can explain that for you because in I think culturally, uh, how to explain that is because our parents, they lived in the Soviet Union when people shouldn't show up. Like my mom told me many stories that she couldn't wear shorter skirt or she couldn't wear any lipstick or nail polish. So everyone needed to be equal. It was a must, like to be equal, to not to show off. So when the 90s came, where the Soviet Union collapsed, people wanted to show off more. Also, people started to have more possibilities, more money. Like 2000s in Russia were an amazing time, like the best time I think ever in Russia, uh, as far as I know. So people were really like valuing these things because they didn't have it, and the majority of Russians are from a very poor families. So when they smelled the taste of money, they wanted to use that, and that's kind of understandable.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, right? Everybody, there was a point where people had to share apartments, right? You had a kitchen that you had to share, and you couldn't even have your own private space. So it kind of makes sense that when they got the freedom, it went to the extreme, and people started to try to prove to other people that they had more money. I think it's usually the result of these kind of conditions. So it makes sense. It's funny now that you live in Portugal, which I think is quite the opposite. I feel like Portugal like barely anything is very luxury. It's definitely not the most luxury oriented country, right? Let's jump into your experience in Portugal. You had first moved to Bragança. You said that was your first um, point in Portugal. What was that experience like for you, having just come from Russia?
So first, how it happened that I moved to Bragança. Actually, initially, I didn't plan to move to Portugal at all. I just won the scholarship, so I wanted to study abroad, to spend 1 semester in an exchange program, to see how it's going. And when I moved to Bragança, when I just came to Bragança, it was completely different lives. Like everything was different, because I'm from a big city. And Bragança is considered a big city in Portugal, in terms of Portugal, but for Russia, it's like a village. It's, I don't know, maybe 10,000, 15,000 citizens, something like this. And no one spoke English. People thought that I'm from England just because I speak English. So the first thing that I had to that I had to learn was like café, like café, tosta mista, like all the food stuff, because I needed to explain myself somehow. Even in university, I studied in English. There were many exchange students, but everywhere, like I don't know, you go to library, you go to the canteen, everywhere you had to speak Portuguese. And that was very interesting for me. And honestly, I felt like I was back in time because they didn't know what is Apple Pay. And they didn't even accept cards in the majority of places. You had to carry cash with you all the time. While in Russia, you just pay with your phone everywhere, like 21st century. And and the time, like the life, it was a very slow life because people were just, they worked, but then I seen people spending 2 hours outside of their work, just having lunch, having some beer, wine. These old ladies in pasteleria, it's like a pastry shop. And I fell in love into this because in Russia, my lifestyle was like, I woke up at 5, 6 a.m. I went to gym, then I went to work. I had to study at the same time. So I was constantly in a rush, in a rush, in a rush. And Bragança was like fresh air for me. I don't know. I could slow down and really enjoy my life for a bit.
So it was a good feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved Bragança. I mean, it's an amazing city for a year. 1 year when you study there, it's great because everything was cheap. It was not crowded. You didn't even need to use public transportation because you could just walk everywhere. I walked a lot there. Also, I lived close to the castle, which was super beautiful, super calm. I could hear birds singing. I seen a castle from my windows. Like I felt like a Disney princess. And people were so friendly, so nice. Like after a while, you already know all the senoras, these old ladies and gentlemen there. It was a very nice life. Yeah.
It's funny too, because for Russian speakers, I feel like Portuguese kind of comes easy, not in the grammatical sense, but in the phonetical sense. And a lot of people say when they hear Portuguese, it sounds like Russian. I want to hear your opinion because to me, it sometimes does. What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes, I'm somewhere, I don't pay attention what people are saying. And I somehow heard that people are swearing in Russian, but it was actually Portuguese.
Exactly. Yeah. I have such a funny story. I was with my mom in Brazil, and my mom and I are speaking Russian. And a Brazilian turns to us and he's like, "Are you two from Portugal?" And I'm like, "You don't know your own language?" Like, you couldn't tell me speaking your language. Yeah, but it's funny, right? Because it's the tonality. It's like, that's how it
Yeah.
sounds.
Yeah, I always teach Portuguese one tongue twister. It's шла Саша по шоссе, сосала сушку. Just stop, 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 stop. It's, for me, it sounds very Portuguese.
Yeah,
And it's very, very easy for them to pronounce.
I agree.
At the same time, there are some sounds that Portuguese cannot pronounce, which is especially Brazilian people. They also speak Portuguese. They cannot pronounce and for me, it's complicated to pronounce this like pão. These sounds. Also, when they say h instead of r,
Mm.
that's confusing for me. Sometimes,
Rio.
yeah, Rio, yeah. But for example, Ricardo. Like you have to change from h to r, and
Yeah.
my tongue is breaking.
So you moved to Lisbon after Bragança, or you lived somewhere else?
After Bragança, I kind of moved to Porto. I lived between Porto and Bragança. It was COVID time. And after that, I moved to Lisbon
Mm.
in 2020.
Okay, so we must have been in Lisbon the same time because I left in, I think, 2021. 21, 22. Um, how was Lisbon different? Obviously, Lisbon is very international, so it's day and night. What was your experience like?
So first, I didn't understand anything because I moved when it was COVID time, and I found job there, and I spent 2 weeks in the office, and then it was complete lockdown, so I had to be locked in my room. But it was very interesting because I shared apartment with the French, Italian, Romanian, like from I don't know, we were five from different countries, and we had our local COVID parties there, so it was pretty international. Um, and of course, Lisbon is much bigger than Bragança, and it's a capital. You can feel it, and I mean, 5 years ago, 6 year, 5 6 years ago, it was a very different city because of COVID. I think it was the best time for me to be in Lisbon, and I really miss this time because it was not crowded. There were not many tourists, and it still had this Portuguese soul that I think it's been losing very fast right now because of the tourism, because of a lot of expats. Yes, I'm one of them, immigrant. But yeah, it's not the same Lisbon anymore, I think, because it used to be more conservative and more Portuguese lived in the city center. You could feel it because there were still many local places, like local cafes, local shops. It was a little bit abandoned at the same time because many buildings were just not, I don't know, they belonged to someone, but no one cared about that. Mm, yeah, it was very different. I kind of miss it. Now Lisbon looks more beautiful, more modern, but I feel like you go to the city center and you can see the same places everywhere, the same brunch places where people just sell international food. So, like, what's the point of coming to Portugal if it's really hard to find good Portuguese food in the center of Lisbon now?
Mm.
And there's almost no Portuguese live in the center, which is super sad to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually have my nostalgic feeling is for the COVID times, which sounds really weird because most people really hate COVID and remembering COVID. But for me, there was something about the city during that time that felt more genuine somehow. And I feel like ever since COVID, stopped, a bunch of Instagrammers, wannabe digital nomads flocked to the city because it was the new place to be. And I don't know if that's ruined the city. I visited briefly afterwards. It didn't really feel the same as it did when I was there. So for me, it's interesting that you mentioned that as well, that it felt somehow more authentic. Less people, clean, also cleaner because there were just less people. Maybe it's super clean now. I don't know. Um,
It's not.
no. Okay. So then, yeah, I'm right in that. I do miss that time. And I don't know if it's the same. I think when a city becomes too popular, it loses that authenticity. Also, as you mentioned, people cannot afford to live in Lisbon. I mean, the amount of money that expats and digital nomads are paying for apartments, like what average Portuguese person can afford to pay that with their salary, what, 600 euros a month?
Oh no, because the minimum wage is like 900. If I'm not mistaken, I know probably it increased, but as far as I know, it's around 900. So even if you are living in a room, like now to rent a room is expensive. It's around 500 euros. So imagine you're paying 50% of your salary in a room, which is not even going to be new because people don't really care about the quality of the apartment. This is a big range. Like if you want something cheaper, it's going to be in a very bad condition, and something is that is in more or less good condition. Or I'm not talking about luxury. This is insane price. But if you want something more or less good, yeah, you be ready to pay like 600-700 for a room, which is insane. Like Portuguese work hard, but they cannot. And I think that's the difference between Portugal and the rest of Europe, like Germany, Netherlands, and stuff. Like here, if you if you work for a Portuguese company and if you're receiving a Portuguese salary, you're not able to live in Lisbon. Oh, while if you're working in a company in Germany and you're German or Netherlands or some other countries, you are able to live in the capital. It's just yeah, digital nomads came, and I cannot tell that I'm a digital nomad because I came to study and then I worked for a Portuguese company. So I experienced all the pains that Portuguese people experience. Now I work for myself. I'm building a little business and marketing. Uh, and it's easier to me now. But before, when I worked for a Portuguese company, it was really hard to afford even a room. So I realized that it's not worth it and never again.
Do you feel like it's also so what I really liked about Portugal when I lived there is that Portuguese were really pleasant and they actually enjoyed having foreigners around. I think the whole system was based around foreigners. Even when you board TAP Airlines, their message for that message that they show you before you take off, it just featured foreigners. It was like, here's a French person, here's a Brazilian. Maybe there was one Portuguese, but everything was based around foreigners. And I feel like nowadays Portuguese are not that happy about foreigners, obviously, for obvious reasons.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. And government try, like, I can tell it even with the government and the parties that they vote for, because it used to be a very good circumstance. There were very good conditions for foreigners because you could have an HR which allows you to pay less taxes. Like, government did everything to attract foreigners. Now they do exactly the opposite thing. They just yesterday, I think, the president signed the law when you have to wait until 10 years to get the passport, to apply for the passport. To get the passport is another thing. um, so yeah, and before, I mean, people, some Portuguese are still very welcome. Like, they're still very welcoming. They love foreigners. They understand that without foreigners, Lisbon and the whole Portugal will not have this economical growth as it had before. But at the same time, I think they're very tired of foreigners coming because what they say that because of us, the prices has increased, the prices for property for sure increased. Yeah, all the prices, and people cannot afford in the cities cannot afford life in the cities anymore. So that's a real issue for them, and I understand. I understand that. I also can see this because it used to be possible to live in Lisbon, in the center of Lisbon for Portuguese. Now it's possible only if you're very rich or you have an apartment from your parents, but there's no way that you can afford to buy an apartment and to rent as well. So like, it's kind of hopeless situation. I don't know how government is going to solve it. And another problem with digital nomads and with immigrants that people come here and people don't want to be integrated into the culture. So they bring their own values here. And that's why Portugal also loses the culture, because there's like, I don't know, you walk in Lisbon, you don't see Portuguese, you barely hear Portuguese speech because foreigners just come and they spread their cultures. That's also what Portuguese don't like. And I can tell it by my Russian friends. For example, many of my friends, they moved here, but they don't speak English, they don't speak Portuguese, and they just live in their own bubble, like Russian community, and they're okay with that. Many people are okay with that. Some people try to learn Portuguese, try to learn English as well. So it's getting better, but I feel like majority of the people don't care about Portuguese culture.
Yeah, and it's funny too because the last time I was there, I remember I went to one of the famous brunch places. You probably know this one. It always has a lineup. Um, Anyways, so I'm sitting at this brunch place, and it's of course full of digital nomads with their fancy hats, like having their whatever Axe Florentine. And then you see on the contrast of that, you see there's like a hill to the side of it, and you see this old Portuguese man being led by two people up the hill, and you feel like, what a weird contrast this is in a city where there's so many poor people, kind of like second class citizens in a way now, because you have somebody coming from Sweden or the Netherlands or the US where they're like, oh, does anyone know where I can get an apartment for 2,000 euros? Like, okay, it's not that they're a problem. They're not, because the government is the problem, right? But right. So it's like, I cannot blame someone who has the money who's coming in, but it's obvious that the government is like, well, then where we don't really care about our own people. And you know what's funny too? Like I kind of think like I don't know. I feel like Portuguese people or the government has very like short term vision, or they just kind of it's very weird. I remember like even during COVID, I don't know if you remember the rules. The rules were really crazy. We couldn't like they closed all the parks, the whatever three parks that there are in Lisbon. There's not that many parks. There's not a lot of green, and so they closed the only green that we had. And you had to like closely like they would closely watch if you wore masks. And I remember it was springtime and all the tourists started coming in, and so they were really careful about making sure that the city was ready for tourists. That was the primary focus. But I remember going to a bar, and at one point, was literally like weeks after we were told to put the mask on, someone was smoking in the bar next to me inside. And I went to the owner and I said, this doesn't make any sense. Like, you were just telling us wear the mask everywhere. And they're like, yeah, no, it's okay. Because, and there was like an excuse or whatever. It didn't make any sense. So I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, none of this makes any sense. And also the fact that you said like getting the tourists in, and now they're like, okay, now you have to wait 10 years. So, um, not a lot of long term vision in that sense either.
No, I think it's the stupidest thing that they could do, because now what will happen? I think they want to get rid of these illegal immigrants and low qualified immigrants that come. But what I see now with this new law, actually, people that really have money and pay 50% of their taxes to government. By the way, even if you're paying taxes, it's not guaranteed that you can use the public health or some other stuff like you pay. But to get a utente number, which is like a health number, you have to get a residency, and people are waiting for their residency for years. So imagine you pay, I don't know, 50% of your salary on Segurança Social, it's like social tax and other taxes, and you cannot even go to a doctor. This is insane. And they were coming here in Portugal to be able to get passports sooner at least. Now they don't see any reason to stay here. And I'm talking about high qual, right? Like IT people and people that really kind of, they wanted to integrate into Portugal and they liked Portugal and they are sharing the values of Portuguese people and stuff like this. So now they want to leave. But the low qualified people, they really don't care, I think, and they will stay here. So Portugal, and these people pay less taxes. So Portugal will lose a lot of money. So I don't know, what are they thinking about?
Yeah, I agree. They really did something right, because there are many countries that people could have gone to, like Spain, which is next door and which has really good infrastructure and everything. Also has like warmer nights. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm not saying
better housing.
better housing and everything, and like beaches and stuff that are warm to swim in. Sorry, this is from my own angst of living in
Oh, I
Portugal.
agree with you. I agree.
It's doing better in many ways. And so, but the incentive was like, but Portugal was easier to settle in and it had all these perks. And now it's like, what perk am I getting? It's expensive. Like, I loved Portugal for the fact that, as you said, it was authentic. It was like underwear hanging outside. You know, that kind of authenticity that I really enjoyed, like the village life. That's how Lisbon was to me when I came. It was like a one of those festivals in June. This one.
São João. São João, I think it's
I
called.
think it was São João, and then you have people wearing sardinha hats and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, I miss this, coming from Toronto, busy city. I was like, I want the simplicity of life. Having said that, when you raise the prices, it's no longer a simple, authentic, cute life. It's like, what am I paying for then now,
Yeah. The thing is that they raised the prices, but the quality remained the same. And it's just not worth it. I'm thinking to move somewhere else, to be honest, because it's just not worth to live here anymore, because you can find a better apartment for the same price somewhere in Barcelona and the quality is going to be much better. Okay. One thing that bothers me in Spain is the security. I don't feel safe there. I feel anxious, especially in Barcelona. But in some other smaller cities, I think the life is much better than in Portugal, because the economy is better. Like, Spain is a richer country. Yes, you will pay more taxes, but if you have better access to the house and other stuff that is essential, it's okay. Like, I don't mind to pay taxes. I don't mind to pay high taxes if I know where are they going to. And that was my issue in Russia at the same time, because the level of corruption is high, that, and you pay taxes, but they don't do anything good for the city. Just all the taxes, all the money go to Moscow, and Moscow is amazing, and they have like the new roads every year, but there is nothing is going on in my city, for example, and I was strongly against this. So I moved to Portugal, and I thought that it's Europe, so it has to have some standards, right? And it has to have less corruption. But I understand now that it's not true. And what Portuguese tell me that Portugal is very corrupted as well. And I don't know where my taxes go. I will give you an example. Like what made me really frustrated, and I'm kind of disappointed in Portugal. And I'm thinking like, okay, I'm 30. I would love to have kids in future, but I don't know. Like my friend, she got pregnant and she went to apply to have a family doctor because she's pregnant, right? She needs a doctor. And the hospital didn't let her have a doctor. It was like, there's no doctors. There's no doctors. And she had to sue the hospital. Only after that, they gave her a doctor.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a crazy situation.
So I'm like, how can I get pregnant in this country if, and even to Portuguese people, okay, she's Russian, probably it should be different conditions, maybe, even though I think all people should be treated equally. But it happens with Portuguese as well. And also last year, that's actually how I kind of started my blog because I just needed a place to complain. That happened to me. I had a severe back pain. It was that kind of pain that I could not move. So I called the ambulance because I could not even move, like I could not go anywhere. And I didn't have much money to go to a private. I didn't have an insurance. So I called the ambulance and they brought me to the nearest hospital, which was in Almada. And I spent 8 hours in the hospital and they didn't even check me. I asked, like, please give me painkiller. Like, I will wait more, but just give me painkiller to reduce the pain. And everyone was super rude to me. Like, I don't know, I don't speak this way with my dog, with any dog. They spoke with me like I'm nothing. I'm not a person.
Wow.
And then, yeah, it was so terrible. But then I started to speak with Portuguese that are there. And there were old people that were waiting for many hours, like 12 hours, 16 hours. And they had more serious problems that I had, probably like with heart or something. I don't know. Old people were waiting. So I looked at this and that was really disappointing.
Did everything work out with your back, by the way? I'm actually invested in this.
Well, I not really. So it was already 3 a.m. and I asked like how long I will have to wait, and I realized that I don't know. I can be one day there without any um, help. So I asked my friend to pick me up. They picked me up from there, and I went home. The next day, I went to private.
Okay. Did they figure out the root of the problem?
Yeah, they did. They did. Actually, I just needed a shot of painkiller.
Oh.
I just needed a shot of ibuprofen. So in private, it took, I don't know, half an hour.
Yeah. I've only done private, so I don't know how the situation is with the public, but I know that a friend of mine had to wait the entire day to get seen, a Brazilian friend of mine. So what would you say has been and for anyone that's listening, we're going to talk about some positives, don't worry. But what has been the biggest frustration so far with your life in Portugal? Has it been this kind of blah blah attitude?
Yeah. It's the blah blah attitude, and it comes to everywhere. I think Portuguese are really tired of expats, migrants, foreigners, tourists. So they just don't care. They don't want to be polite. And what is the funny thing that they speak English, but sometimes they just pretend that they don't speak English and they don't want to talk to you if you speak English to them. So you have to speak Portuguese.
It's so interesting because I remember during COVID when I was there, that still wasn't the case. I was learning Portuguese, so I was actively trying to speak Portuguese. But I remember speaking English and everybody was super polite and nice and kind and like very like the men there seemed very like soft. Like, oh, la Marina, la la la, always you're talking in an Uber. They're very sweet. Um, The women, it was hit or miss. The women could be nice, could be like, ooh, like really scary. Like actually, it's funny because the first time I came to Portugal, I remember I came on a bus from Spain, and it felt to me like I'd gone back in time to the 90s like Russia in the 90s, like the first thing I saw was this woman with a blue eyeshadow, and I was like, who still wears blue eyeshadow? And it was so weird. It was like literally going back to our country.
That's true. That's so true. And in Bragança, I think they still use this this type of makeup and clothes. It was really back on time. Yeah, somewhere not even the 90s, but like 80s.
Yeah. So talking about Portuguese people and the mentality, what are the differences that you've noticed with the Russian mentality, either communication or anything else that you went, oh, this is very different?
First, they smile. They're very warm people. If you smile in Russia, there's something wrong with you. And here, people are just smiling, and they're more chill. They're more relaxed. In Russia, people are very tense and very, goal oriented, super ambitious. They need to earn all the money in the world. Here, they are more chill. They think, oh, I will go to the ocean. I will have my coffee, my cigarette, and I'm great. Like they are learned to value simple things. That's the main difference, I think. Yeah, they are more polite here. Also, they are like time management is different here. That's the funny thing because if a party is supposed to start, like if they say that the party is starting at 9, no one will come at 9. It's even a bad manner to come on time. You'll need to come like at 10, 11, something like this, and it's totally normal. For me, it was a cultural shock because I need to be on time everywhere. And at the beginning, I was always on time, and I realized that I'm alone and I have to wait for everyone. So now I'm also late. I can be 1, 2 hours late. But yeah, it's like this.
It's a good transition for you if you're going to go to Spain, because Spain is way, 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 way worse in that sense. Like it's a super late night culture. What's interesting to me is the Portuguese. I feel like they have such an issue with, like, kind of like Brazilians have an issue with confrontation, and they're very indirect, and they don't want to hurt your feelings.
Oh,
I feel like,
yeah.
right? Brazilians are like renowned for that. Like, oh, I don't want to like. Russians are very like we're very direct, but I feel like
Yeah, we are very
Portuguese.
straightforward.
Mm, mhm.
And Portuguese and Brazilians think that we are rude, but we're just straightforward. We're not playing these games. And if they promise you something, if they tell you something, you have to divide their words, I don't know, twice, 3 times, because they just don't want to let you down. So they will tell you what you want to hear, but it doesn't mean that they will really do something that is they promised, or if they really think this way.
Yeah. Have you had any situations that have really annoyed you where this has happened?
Mm, yeah, for example, there were many situations where I planned something with Portuguese or Brazilians, especially Brazilians. And they're like, yes, Gala, let's do that and that and that and this, and we never did anything.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. I've been so frustrated when I was there because I'm like, I'm used to Canada and the way kind of what they say they do. But in Portugal, I remember like there was a hostel next to our place, and it opened up after COVID, and they were having these parties. Like I could hear them singing every single song through the wall. Like I could hear the lyrics of every single song. And my ex-boyfriend, he was like, whatever, he fell asleep. And I was so annoyed. I couldn't sleep. So I called the hostel and I said, hi, could you please lower the music? And he's like, hi, yes, so sorry. Okay, yes, we will do it. Like 30 minutes pass, nothing changes. I call, I'm like, listen, I literally just called you. Could you lower the music? Ah, yes, Marina, yes, okay. Yeah, of course. Yeah, 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 no problem. Nothing effing changes. I had to call the
Yeah,
police, and the police went, okay, we're going to go there. They didn't go there. And so I called I think there was 3 times where I was like, literally, I just called the police on you, and this has happened like a few times where they don't want to get into an argument with you. They're not going to be rude, at least not in my experience when I was there. Maybe they are more rude now, but you cannot count on it actually,
that's
happening.
true. That happened to me as well. Yes, yes, yes. But they're kind of lazy to solve any problems. It will take ages, hours, days, to solve something.
I have a question for you. What do you think about walking in Lisbon? What is your experience with
Well,
walking? When was the last time you wore high heels? Is the question.
actually, I have a project in the center of the city, so I have to climb the hills. But then I discovered elevators. So now I take the elevator up to Grasa, which saves my butt because, yeah, it's a challenge. It's like you don't need gym. You don't need gym.
Elevator, like the streetcar ones?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah. The
God,
street.
I'm
They have a
scared
lot
for
of
you.
apparently they have a lot of elevators in the street. I even made a video about that and it became viral because many people thanked me for that, saying that I saved their hips and legs.
Like an actual elevator, or are you talking about the
Yeah. No,
streetcars?
no, in actual, no, no, no,
Oh,
actual
okay, good,
elevator. You
good.
go there and it lifts you up to where you want.
Oh, I had
Yeah.
no idea. I just remember looking at the map, it would say 5 minutes, and then I look in front of me and I see this giant hill that I have to climb, and I'm huffing and
Oh my God.
puffing,
Yeah.
hating my life. I think that's one of the biggest struggles that I'd experienced when
Yeah.
I lived
I
there.
remember one day my friend suggested a restaurant and we were somewhere like Arch de Sodré, close to the river. And he was like, yeah, it's just 15 minutes walk. And we needed to walk, like to climb to Alfama. And we didn't know, like, but it was like stairs. I don't know how many stairs it was, but in the end, when we entered the restaurant, I wasn't already hungry. I was so tired that I could not think about anything.
On the
It was
plus
very,
side, you get a Brazilian butt lift when you live in Portugal. Like your butt gets really, really nice. Because I lived in Graça. You know where that is. I lived in a hill in Graça the first year that I was there. And I think I never really walked. I think I took Ubers all the time because going down the hill was even worse because you're like, oh shit, I'm going to fall. I'm going to break my head, especially if it's raining and it gets wet and slippery and you're whole, like you're like a deer. You're like trying to not like it's really really difficult. If anyone's lived in Lisbon, they can relate to the pain of
that's
walking
true.
down the hill. Yeah, and then I lived in Liberdade, which was flat, thankfully. But where do you live in the city?
I live close to Campo Grande.
Mm,
Alvalade, Campo Grande. Yeah, that's why you can hear planes probably
yeah,
because I
yeah.
can see it from my windows passing. It's kind of flat. That's one of the reason I chose this neighborhood because it's flat. I was tired. I lived in Ajuda, which is do you know Belém? And it's
Hmm.
upper. So I had to climb all the time, and my way to supermarket was like I'm going down the hill, then I'm going up the hill, then I'm going down the hill again, and back up down up down. It was a challenge. I was so lazy. I used a lot Uber delivery.
Yeah. I kind of want to quickly ask you again, it's going to feel like I'm just like complaining about Portugal. And I'm not. I really love Portugal. I have
Me
a really
too.
soft place in my heart for Portugal. But there are a few things that did bother me about life there. And I think one of them for me, but maybe you have a different experience, were the supermarkets. It's just the amount of options, unless you're looking for seafood or bacalhau or wine, were quite limited. Do you think it's changed since I was there? How has your experience been?
I think it did change. There is honestly, when I just moved here, I didn't feel that I'm struggling with that. Probably because in my city in Russia, there was like not that high range of products that you had in Moscow or that you have in Canada. But I felt pretty satisfied. And especially in my hometown, even though it's kind of close to the sea, we didn't have this variety of fish, seafood, different types of meat. It's different. So when I saw all the shrimp, salmon dorado there, and you can just buy it fresh and it's cheap, I was amazed. And everything was so cheap back then. Now it's more expensive, but back then I was in a heaven because I love seafood so much. Yeah, but now I think maybe in the smaller cities you can struggle with food, but in Lisbon you can find a lot of options, especially there are some supermarkets like Le Corte Inglés or some local like Lux supermarkets where you can find some products from all over the world, like very high quality. I think overall the quality of food in Portugal is better than in Russia.
Interesting. Okay, I think maybe there's a difference, as you said, between Moscow and the rest of Russia, and like Moscow has everything because they just love fancy living, but everywhere else is not the same. You know what I mean? So it's hard to compare.
Yeah. Even though I think in my region is agrarian, region in Russia. So we had amazing tomatoes, cucumbers, variety of milk products. That's what I really miss.
Mm,
That's what I really miss because vegetables here are not that great. In Bragança, it was better because there are some farmers, some local stores when you can find a very good vegetables. But here, I struggle a bit with that
yeah, I
because like
remember that.
tomatoes, they they smell and they taste like plastic.
For me, the problem
Cucumbers,
was were cucumbers. Cucumbers were a
I stopped
problem.
eating it. I don't know. Last time, I don't remember last time I ate cucumbers because they are bitter. I don't know who even buy them. Like, I don't know. People
Yeah.
want to suffer.
Yeah, I agree. Tomatoes I ate because they were for me they were okay, like passable, maybe same as in Canada. But yeah, cucumbers were an issue. Jumping off of from the cucumbers to the dating, you're now dating a Brazilian man.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Um, but you had have you had any experience at all dating Portuguese men? What was that like?
Yeah, I did. I did. Actually, the longest relationship that I had with the Portuguese was around 8, 9 months. Yeah, it was in 2022. Yeah, I think it was in 2022. Um, it was a nice experience, but at the same time, it was like 50-50 relationship, you know what I mean? And for a Russian girl, it's a bit I don't know, for our culture, you know, people like men are really gentlemen. They like to pay the bills, like they want you to be as feminine as you want, like to feel woman, la la la. And with Portuguese, it's not like this. They give you complete freedom, but also you are 100% responsible for yourself, which is okay for me. Like I earn my own money, like I don't struggle. That's fine. But after a while, I realized that I really loved him, but as a friend. I just stopped feeling the, oh my God, I hope he's not listening to this. Probably he will.
What was his name?
Sorry,
Joao.
man. You're amazing. I really enjoyed the relationship with him, but we had amazing time. But at one point, I mean, I didn't hide it from him. I told him when I was breaking up with him that I didn't feel this attraction, you know, I didn't feel like I'm with a man. I just felt more like a friendship. So, yeah.
Interesting.
And also I think, I mean, I had some other experience with Portuguese. I went to many dates with Portuguese. I tried my best, but then I gave up because I feel like it's kind of the same situation as in my hometown. There are two types of Portuguese. Ambitious Portuguese, which are like they traveled a lot or they travel a lot, they have a good job, good education, and they want to live abroad and they move abroad. They find good companies in Switzerland, Germany, and others. So you cannot really build relationship with them. Or there are people that stay in Portugal, but they're less ambitious and they're less mature, and they most probably live with their parents by the age of 30, and they just don't want any responsibilities. You know, they don't want anything long term because what for? You know, they are pretty satisfied with their life. Probably not, but I mean, that's not my type of man.
A bit more passive, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're very, actually, yeah, Portuguese men are very passive and they were waiting until I invite them somewhere as well. And I'm not going to invite, I'm not going to force relationship. I think it should be on a man's side. So I really struggled.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of my foreigner friends complain about this. I've also tried to date Portuguese men. And I remember one of the conversations I had, the guy was in Cascais, and he was like, "Why don't you come here?" And I said, "Why
Yes.
don't you come here?" And he's like, "Well, why should I go to you?" And I was like, "Why are we having this conversation? This is so just, going back and forth, like so childlike." One of the guys that I did date, he was an owner of the hostel there, and he was more proactive because he was surrounded by foreigners. But
Hmm.
I remember he was always at some events, some family things or some friend things. And he was always, everything was always last minute. And I was like, I don't even know what you want. It could have been a he thing. Yeah, the one complaint I've definitely heard is that Portuguese men are quite passive, because it's also very conservative society, right? Probably less in Lisbon, but overall, and like women are also they hold back Like they kind of want men to prove that they're more interested in them than just a one night stand. But men are like, they don't know how to talk to women. They don't know how to approach for the most part. And so things can drag on also for a really long time. At least that's what my friends have said. That it's like messaging back and forth, and then he wants you to put the effort in, and it's just exhausting.
That's true. That's true. They like I had a some guys. They were like now and then inviting me for a dinner or something, but then they canceled last moment or something else happens. Like, man, if you're interested, just be like constant. I don't know. Just if you invited me somewhere, okay, let's go, or find an alternative if you cannot. But it's just like this, and I don't know. It's happened to many of my friends. We don't know why is this happening, what is in their heads, but honestly, I don't even want to know what is in their hands. I just realized that I don't want to date Portuguese. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there are some Portuguese in the world that are amazing. I mean, for sure they are, but I'm very happy with the Brazilian man because I really feel like I'm with a man.
So with a Brazilian, do you think he was much more proactive than Portuguese?
Oh, definitely. Actually, our story is quite interesting because we were both fed up of all this shit. He had bad experiences, I had bad experiences. So on our first date, we just had a super honest conversation on what do we want? What do we want from relationship? How do we see the perfect relationship? What are our goals in life? Like we were super honest with each other. And we just realized that we match, like our values match, our plans match. So it was pretty easy now. Like we didn't play any games. We just knew what to expect from each other. And we still know.
Which part of Brazil is he from?
He's from Bahia.
Mm.
Uh north
North? North?
north east.
East?
I think it's north.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to confuse.
Yeah.
But he's from Bahia. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned before that you think like Russians and Brazilians are actually quite compatible. Do you think that?
I think so. Yeah. I think the culture, dating culture is also kind of similar. Like Brazilian men want to be masculine. They want to provide. They want to, I mean, they still want a woman, like, as he tells me that he wants an independent woman, but he still has this mentality of providing, of taking care of a woman. So I think the culturally it's very similar.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I think like when you mentioned that this whole like independent woman thing, I think that's a very European thing in general, right? People think, oh, if I go to Spain, no, it's definitely even less conservative, way less conservative than Portugal,
Mhm.
right? So women are very independent and it's definitely very 50-50. Probably Italy is still the South. The South, I stress, is still much more conservative and the man is still more of a gentleman. But overall, like if you go to northern Italy, that's not really the case. I mean, we all know Germany, Netherlands, whatever, all that part. It's still like women are very, very independent. I think the only ones that it's like us, like Eastern Europeans and Balkans, or I mean, women are very strong in the Balkans, like in Serbia and stuff. But it's still like Eastern Europe is very different from Western Europe. Even when you said Portugal, right? Because when you think of Portugal, you think, oh, they're conservative. Man is the no. It's like it's moved on from that. Like Portuguese women are very strong, in my opinion. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
No, I think it's because also because of their historical heritage, because they had dictatorship, they had Salazar, where women were not able to have their own money, education, and everything. So they were really fighting for this freedom. And now they are kind of enjoying this freedom. But at the same time, I worked with a Portuguese girl and we were talking about dating stuff. And she's like, no, I'm going to pay for my bill on the first date, on every date. I want to be independent. I'm like, okay, whatever. I disagree with you. I think for me, like men should pay on the first dates. That's not even a question. And she was arguing with me, but then one day she came back. She came to the work and she was like, "Oh, I was on a date with a guy and he paid for the dinner. It was so nice. I felt like a woman. Like he took care of me. That was so like cute." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's about how you feel after the date. Of course, I can pay. Like have no problem to pay for myself, but it's not even about money. It's about the gests. You know, it's about like a man wants to show the appreciation."
Yeah. And it's funny too because I interview about this around the world and I have to say that even the women, Scandinavian women or German women or whatever, there are some that are like, no, do not pay for me. I will get super angry. For the most part, all women enjoy this. They just enjoy it in the right context. They enjoy it provided that they find the guy attractive and they don't feel like, oh, now I'll have to owe him anything. And if the guy doesn't make her feel like she owes him anything, that it's done out of courtesy and just being a gentleman. And so, like, everyone likes this gesture. I don't know any woman that's like offended by it to the point where she says no. Because as you said, it's a good feeling. You feel kind of protected and you feel also that someone's interested in you enough to do something besides just sit with you, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so I'm all for it. I think people confuse independence and being chivalry. Those are different things.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Provided you're not a Tarielicious. Provided you're not taking advantage of the guy,
Yeah,
like being like,
yeah,
take
yeah,
me
yeah.
to the Michelin star restaurant on the first date. Okay, let's talk about some of the positives. Uh, or actually, yeah, let's talk about the positives. What have been your favorite things about living in Portugal? Just so people know that there's a reason that you're still there. You haven't moved.
Well, yeah, I have a big hope that the situation will change, even though probably it's not. But I really love the climate here. I love the weather. I like that it's what? It's already almost November, right? We are in the end of October and it's pretty warm. Even though it was raining, it's pretty warm. The access to the ocean, even though it's cold and you cannot swim, but it's just so nice that every weekend you can just go to the beach to see the ocean, maybe even to swim or to surf, and the nature is very close. That's what I love. Also, we have Sintra, which is for me, I don't know if you've been there, but for me, it's like a Disneyland. I don't know, this beautiful buildings, the castles. I really love it. Also, I think Portugal, compared to Spain, for example, it's a safe country. I can tell that I'm not afraid of walking here at night. Um, Even though now it's changing to the worst side, but I think overall it's still safer than other European countries. Um, yeah. What else? Food, especially seafood. Yeah, actually, yeah, it's a good quality of food here.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's nice that Portugal kind of has a slower pace of life too. If you're into
Also,
that,
yeah.
if you're into that,
Well, not in Lisbon,
not anymore.
but in a smaller cities, definitely.
Mm. Lisbon must have changed a lot since I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also, I like that Lisbon, even though it's a capital, but it's a little capital and it's very cozy. And some streets really remind me of my hometown. There are no skyscrapers. There are no that big noise. You know, it's still calmer. You
mm.
can feel that it's calmer.
So, if you could go back and give yourself past advice, like give yourself advice about moving, is there anything that you would say to yourself?
Yeah, I would say learn the language because I was stupid when I moved. I didn't really expect that I will end up living in Portugal for so long. And when I came to Bragança, I decided to study Spanish and German just because I like these languages and I wanted to upgrade it. And I thought like, why do I need Portuguese? I'm not gonna stay here. And now I don't speak Portuguese at the level that I could and that I would love to. While because I don't really have time to study because I work a lot and I have my life. But back then I really had a lot of time that I could invest into learning the language, and I would feel much more comfortable, I think, and I could have more Portuguese friends, for example.
Yeah.
I think.
You've touched upon this before, but do you see yourself staying in Portugal?
It's a hard question because I used to say yes, but I don't know it will, how the situation will be, like how the political situation will be, how the overall situation will be, because I don't see myself staying in Lisbon, let's say. I don't like Lisbon anymore. I'm tired of it. It's too touristy. I don't feel comfortable. So probably I will move to a smaller town somewhere close. I still need to be close to Lisbon because I have my work here. but I would love to go somewhere closer to the ocean or closer to the nature to have a calmer life.
So you feel like Lisbon is not an authentic place to be anymore.
No. I also I love Porto a lot. I didn't go there for years, and people, yeah, for a year I think, and people say that it's been changing a lot as well. I don't know because in my memory, Porto is way calmer and way more authentic than Lisbon. And honestly, my heart is there. I love it.
Well, Galina, as they say in English, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Very interesting because it's a place that I know so well, but yet I don't know it well in the last 4 years that I haven't been there. So it's kind of getting an update on how it's changed and how, this whole like mass tourism, this digital nomads, and things are getting expensive around the world. Let's all go to Portugal and make that expensive. But yeah, it's not just that. It's not just the tourists. It's not just the digital nomads. It's the country's fault. I think I would really love to hear what people have to say in the comments as well about this. Do they live in Lisbon? How they lived in Lisbon? What do they think about it now? And if they could suggest a place to go to, please let us know because I'm also looking for one. And everywhere is not so perfect. So that's just how it is. Anyways, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. And guys, to everyone else, if you enjoyed the podcast, please let us know in the comments below. Leave your thoughts, leave questions for Galina if you have any, or just go check her out on Instagram, send her a message there. She posts a lot about her life in Portugal, the good and the bad and all the honest stuff. So I think it's very interesting if you're moving to the
And
city.
I love to talk to people there and I love to give advice. So
yeah.
It was a pleasure.
Sounds good. So yeah, definitely message her there. Until next time, stay human, stay curious. Hope you all enjoyed the podcast. If you made it all the way through, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're watching or listening. Your support helps me bring in bigger guests and surprise you with even better episodes. Until next time.